I am like obsessed with this top right now, and I'm wearing a poppy because this is a very special video. As you can see, we have new lights. There's a gap here and that's like triggering my OCD. We have a new setup, very spacious. These lights are beautiful. I'm going to have them up all year round. The lights are being held up by tape, as you can see. That's only because I didn't feel like punching holes through my wall with nails and hammer. Like, no thank you, I'll just take the easy route, which was tape. Do you know what I love about these lights? You can change them. Look. Oh! We'll be getting a nice chair, like a, I don't know, like a deep purple velvet chair. Like, don't get me wrong, I do love spinning on this chair, it's so much fun. But I need a chair that, you know, is actually comfortable. I will be getting a new chair soon. Hey, it's Mel, I hope you're doing well and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, it's lovely to have you here. My poppy just fell off. I'm so upset. I was going to wear it for today's video, but it keeps falling off, so we're just going to put that there and move on. Today is Remembrance Day, or Remembrance Sunday, and it marks the day that World War I ended in 1918. We do hold a 2-minute silence to remember those who lost their lives during the war, and just to pay our respects. Today we're going to be looking at the Xmas Truce of 1914. This is such an incredible story about enemies who became friends just to celebrate Christmas. The Xmas Truce inspired TV ads, films and documentaries. The one that I've seen is, I can't remember the name of it right now, but I recently saw a film. It's called something Noel, and it was a film based on this event. With that being said, let's get into it. World War I began on the 28th of July 1914. When the war broke out, commanders told their soldiers that, quote, "you'll be home in time for Christmas," end quote. They expected the war to be over by then, but they were wrong. The British soldiers digged really elaborate trenches. They slept, they ate, and pretty much lived in these things. A pile of mud was pretty much your pillow, and food was scarce, water was limited, conditions were really rough. It rained most of the time, and the rain would reach knee length. The soldiers were cold, miserable, and missing their families. In the first winter of war, more men died of disease and infection than died by the enemy. Rats and lice had taken over the trenches. The British were fighting the Germans, the army of Kaiser Bill. Enemy trenches were just a few yards apart, divided by no man's land. Officially, the British soldiers were not allowed to have cameras, but they snuck them into the trenches anyway to take pictures, and to be honest, even though these images are really brutal and upsetting, I'm glad that they were taken, because they show a huge part of our history. This incident has gone down in history as being one of the greatest memories of war. It's a symbol of peace on earth and goodwill towards humans, so often lacking not just on the battlefield but in our everyday lives. It all started at 8 PM on Christmas Eve of 1914. The Germans put up tiny Christmas trees and candles above their trenches. When the British soldiers saw this and they saw the lights, it brought them such joy. They were just happy to see that Christmas was not ruined and it was still occurring. One German soldier stepped onto no man's land and started singing Silent Night. After the song finished, the British clapped and cheered. They sang back the first Noel. After that song, the Germans cheered and clapped for the British too. This almost became a sort of like song battle, if you will. Like the Germans sang and then the British sang. They actually sang quite a few songs. The Germans were much better at singing than the British. The Christmas spirit was very strong that night. Both sides had become friendly in the month leading up to Christmas. The Christmas Truce was a brief spontaneous ceasefire that spread along the 500-mile Western Front. Both sides wanted to celebrate Christmas Day. There are a few sources out there which claim that the Christmas Truce was arranged, but I don't think so. The Germans also waved at the British, who waved back from the trenches. A week before Christmas, the British launched a number of attacks on the German lines. After this, in some sectors, both sides met between the trenches to bury their dead. They briefly talked to each other. In some places, the two sides held prayer service together. Despite the ongoing war, soldiers did receive Christmas presents, most of which were practical things like blankets. For the Germans, thousands of Christmas trees were dispatched to the front line. Every British soldier was given a Christmas card by the King and Queen. On the back of the card it read, "May God protect you and bring you home safe." Another member of the royal family, Princess Mary, put together a little gift box for the soldiers that were filled with tobacco, chocolate, cigarettes, and it also included a Christmas card and a photo of Princess Mary herself. On Christmas morning, a small group of people from both sides met in the middle of no man's land to say hi. They shook each other's hands, and shortly after this, the rest of the soldiers came out of the trenches and they cheered each other on. They exchanged gifts like chocolate, cigarettes and alcohol. Instead of loneliness and painful cries, the sound of laughter and singing filled the air. Most of the Germans did not speak very good English, but there were a few who did. The men even exchanged clothing, trying on each other's hats and coats. Because of this, in these images you can't tell them apart. Like I said before, the Christmas truce spread along the 500-mile western front. When other British soldiers along the line saw Germans approaching them, at first they thought it was a trick. But it was not a trick. The Germans actually waved at the British soldiers, who were very confused to see both sides communicating with each other and shaking hands on the battlefield. About 30,000 British soldiers were involved in the Christmas truce. Not only were both sides exchanging presents, but the Germans also gave the British mementos. For example, 19-year-old British soldier Eric Roden wrote in his diary, quote, "I went out and found a German who spoke English a little, and we exchanged buttons and cigarettes, and I had 2 or 3 cigarettes given me, and we laughed and joked together, having forgotten war altogether," end quote. Some men who were once barbers were giving out free haircuts and shaves to men who needed it. Both sides even took part in a football match. The British easily beat the Germans 4-1. A lot of the British soldiers were laughing at the very thought of their commanding officers getting red in the face angry because of what was going on. Yet they could do nothing about it. In some places, the truce went on for days, allowing both sides to repair their trenches and improve them. This was a very strange experience for the men, walking into the open, having to not worry about getting shot. When the commanding officers found out about the truce, as we all guessed, they were very furious that this was happening. The Germans were warned if they staged another truce that they would be shot. A lot of British men who took part in the truce refused to fire upon their opponents, as they had gotten to know them personally. The men were rotated out and other soldiers took their place at the front lines. The Germans reacted to this. Also reported by the Times newspaper, by an army order of December 29th, fraternising and especially every approach to the enemy is forbidden, and in future every infraction of this order will be punished as treason. Then strict orders came through from the British officials. The London Rifle Brigade War Diary, recorded on the 2nd of January 1915, said, quote, "Informal truces with the enemy were to cease, and any officer or any NCO, non-commissioned officer, found to have initiated one would be tried by court-martial." But this never happened. In fact, there was no punishment at all for the Christmas truce. However, the fighting went on. That year of 1915, no truces were made and everything went back to normal, but other truces did occur in different places. The Christmas truce of 1914 inspired others. On Easter Sunday at 6 a.m. 1916, armies of Germany and Austria-Hungary were in war with Russia. The spirit of goodwill and humanity broke through. A small group of Russian men came out of the trenches holding a white flag. They wanted to stop the war on Easter, meet between the lines and have a meal together, but they were not granted permission to do this. However, at 12 p.m, Russian men came out of the trenches with the white flag, met in the middle holding baskets of food, and they were accompanied by a band who was playing music. The two sides came together, ate a meal and exchanged gifts. When it comes to images of war, you see more bad than you do good. As time went on, the war became more violent and mindless. World War I ended in November 1918. 880,000 British soldiers died, along with civilians who died of fatal wounds. Every single one of us is somehow connected to the war. For example, I never met the guy, but I might be wrong. I think that my great-great-granddad on my mum's side of the family, his father might have fought in this war, but my point is, the war is a part of our history, it's something to remember, and it's very important. That's all for today. That was the Christmas Truce of 1914, a day where men came together as one to celebrate instead of fight. I understand both sides of this. Feel free to leave a comment below what you think about this story. Do you agree with the truce? Do you not? The biggest question here is, if the truce continued longer, would it have ended the war? My response, probably not. Because we're stupid human beings, everything we create we use to destroy. It's called human nature, and that goes for everything, not just war. A war begins with one man's word. It's their decision. It can start with a simple threat. I mean, what do men with power want more of it? Honestly, I don't understand war sometimes. Like, to me it makes no sense. Why can't we all just be friends like that day in 1914? Why can't we just come together as one, have a cup of tea, maybe some rum, okay, preferably a gin and tonic, sit down, just be nice to each other? But no, we can't have world peace, that's not allowed. I want to say rest in peace to the soldiers of World War I who lost their lives while fighting. More Christmas videos will be coming very soon in December. As always, thanks for watching, take care, bye.